Alright, Travis Wayne Goodsell. It's the Constantine Babylonian converted Sabbath. Constantine converted Babylonian converted Sabbath. The original Sabbath was every single day. That was held by the Egyptians. The Babylonians turned the day of rest into the seventh day because the number 7 was forbidden. It was a taboo day. So no work was performed. Everybody had the day off. And then the Jews, having been captured by Babylon and taken to Babylon, were assimilated by the Borg Babylon and became Babylonian. Babylonian Talmud, for example, is more prominent than the Jerusalem Talmud. And so the Jews are considered Semitic because Babylon is Semitic, as modern scholars define them. And so if you're thinking that I'm anti-Semitic, I'm just clarifying the definitional terms. That is neutral. It is neither for or against a position. Just so that everybody understands the same thing. Alright, now this one has to do with the contradictory doctrines in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There are so much confusion that goes on as all 15 prophets were made prophets, seers, and revelators by Brigham Young. In section 124 of the Doctrine and Covenants, Joseph Smith and his brother Hiram Smith held only the keys of prophet, seer, and revelator. Nobody else got that. Joseph Smith got the added one of translator. But Brigham Young didn't even bother to take that with him. And thus the church does not consider including the title of translator in their general conferences. Pay close attention, Mormons. And it sort of helped them when the papyra was returned to the LDS Brighamite Church rather than the other church of which the United States declared as the official succession church of Joseph Smith. It was through his son. Alright, now as I put on the screen in preparation of doing this video, I put in the quote by Dallin H. Oaks: "The doctrine is taught by all 15 members of the First Presidency and Quorum of the 12. It is not hidden in an obscure paragraph of one talk." And then he gives the example of family proclamations signed by all 15 prophets are a perfect illustration of this. And it looks like I have to remove the footnote 6 from that passage. So I'll try to do it here as I'm talking with you. You can go to his actual conference talk, Trust in the Lord, on the morning session, October 2019, to see the whole thing. Okay, there we go. And then I put in, well, let's talk about Oakes' thing here first. What Oakes did was create an obscure paragraph from one talk to declare doctrine. The hypocrite. And so he caused a lot of confusion with this. I don't know if Mormons understand how it's affected their lives, or whether Mormons are going to pay attention to it, because Mormons have had the other obscure paragraphs from Elder Benson that I put in there next, the 14 fundamentals and following the prophet. And so this is how confusion gets started, is because Brigham Young messed it all up. He gave authority of prophet, seer, and revelator to a whole bunch of people who followed him to Salt Lake. And I don't know if you Mormons fully understand the danger of that, and how that has been the means of destroying the church from within. And that's why Mormons don't see it yet, is because it's within. And when the day comes when the church utterly collapses, Mormons are going to be going, what happened? How did this happen? What's going on? What do we do now? This is how, Mormons. It's because of this contradictory doctrinal understanding of who's in charge. Who do Mormons listen to? Let me go to section 43 of your Doctrine and Covenants. Okay. In Kirtland, Ohio, 1831, some members of the church were disturbed by people making false claims as revelators. They sort of took out the part that these other members were in high standing and were looking in rocks in a hat. And so Joseph Smith inquired of the Lord. And this is what he got, and gave this address to the elders of the church. And so he says, "Hearken, ye elders of my church, and give ear to the words which I shall speak unto you. For behold, verily, verily, I say unto you, that ye have received a commandment for a law unto my church, through him whom I have appointed unto you to receive commandments and revelations from my hand, Joseph Smith. And this ye shall know assuredly, that there is none other appointed unto you to receive commandments and revelations, until he be taken if ye abide in me. But verily, verily, I say unto you, that none else shall be appointed unto this gift, except it be through him." Now this is where Brigham Young thinks he gets his right to do this to all 15. Unfortunately, Brigham Young was not put in properly, therefore he had no authority to do this. If you weren't put in authoritatively and properly, you don't have authority to do anything to act as if you were. And I don't know if Mormons fully grasp that. Do you, Mormons? But you have to say Brigham Young was the right prophet, because people saw Joseph Smith in him, therefore he is the right prophet. No, that's not the process, Mormons. Section 107, I think verse 21, 22. That was the proper process, and it was not done. Brigham Young is therefore not the authorized successor of God, not approved by God, not God's chosen prophet. Sorry, Mormons, church is illegitimate. And so everything that Brigham Young did is not authorized by God. So turning all 15 prophets as prophets, seers, and revelators, not authorized by God. That simple. Verse 5, "And this shall be a law unto you, that ye receive not the teachings of any that shall come before you as a revelation or commandments." Revelations or commandments. "And this I give unto you, that you may not be deceived." Remember, Jesus, talking about the latter days, in chapter 24 of Matthew, he says, in the latter days there shall be false prophets, false Christs, who shall deceive, if possible, the very elect. Does Catholic Church have Christs and apostles and prophets? Nope. Does any Christian church do? Nope. Mormons do, don't they, Mormons? And so, you're not supposed to listen to anyone else. Not of the 12, not of the original separation of 12, which is a missionary quorum, which Brigham Young belonged to, thus he had no prophet, seer, revelator status as president of that quorum, nor any quorum. Only Joseph Smith and his brother were given prophet, seer, revelator. Hiram was patriarch. Joseph was the leader of the church. And that's how it was in the beginning. Brigham Young changed all that and caused a lot of confusion. So let's see. Though everybody else in verse 7 are to teach those revelations which you have received and shall receive through him whom I have appointed. Brigham Young was not the one that God appointed, so we don't listen to Brigham Young. Thus we don't listen to anyone else. Not John Taylor, Wilford Woodruff, Joseph Fielding Smith, none of them, because they were not appointed by God. Section 107, I believe verse 22, but let me check that real quick. 107, 22, yeah, 22. Of the Melchizedek Priesthood, 3 presiding high priests chosen by the body. That was never done. We still don't do it to this day through Brigham Young. Why? Because if Brigham Young started doing this, people go, well, why didn't we do it for you, Brigham? So he had to change this whole process to get away with what he did wrong. And as a result, Mormons now have 15 masters. And as Dallin H. Oakes pointed out, there's been lots of confusion in the church as Mormons obey every single prophet they choose. And then they battle it out among Mormonism as to who is the more prominent commandment among the prophets. Mormon myths get started by this. Caffeine, for example, Mormons? Not the words of the prophet of the church, was it? Oops. And so, yeah, there's whole tons of false doctrine being spread among the Mormon church. Because if it's not from the first president who was appointed by God, which none of them are, there is no true doctrine being presented. Mormons, in order to get the true doctrine of God, have to go back to Joseph Smith, the Book of Mormon, and the Bible prophets. Anything since then, not acceptable. And we should be able to allow the King Follett Discourse. But Brigham Young did not put that in as a Doctrine and Covenant passage section. And so with the 14 fundamentals of the church, he was just an elder of the Quorum of 12, speaking at BYU. So this wasn't even in conference. And so his first one is the prophet is the only man who speaks for the Lord and everything. And then living prophet is more vital to us than the standard works, scriptures. Unbelievable. You know, he said that the living prophet trumps Jesus. Because where is Jesus? The standard works. He said the prophet trumps Jesus. Talk about your obscure paragraph. And yet Mormons cling to this. We only listen to the living prophet, and the living prophet hasn't said anything about it, so we're doing it. That's how Mormons believe and think, don't you, Mormons? And then he confirms that by saying, third, the living prophet is more important to us than a dead prophet. And he talks about how Mormons pit the dead prophets against the living prophet. That's supposed to be the standard for the living prophet. If he goes contrary to what has previously been established as the Word of God, he's wrong. The living prophet does not trump God. He's supposed to speak for God. He's not supposed to speak instead of God. And so Oakes is right. You don't trust Benson in his 14 fundamentals and following the president of the church. Because Benson threw all sorts of confusion by doing this talk at BYU. And then he goes and puts in number 4, the prophet will never lead the church astray. Well, if he's going contrary to the dead prophets, going contrary to Jesus from the standard works, is he not leading the church astray? And so, this is the confusion that is caused with contradictions. And in this case, because Brigham Young gave master authority to 15 men who were most loyal to him. Willard Richards was put in the first presidency with Brigham Young because he was the one who shot Joseph Smith in Carthage jail. Shot him in the back. Nevertheless, he did the job Brigham Young ordered him to do. And so he was made a prophet, seer, and revelator, and his consigliere, as it's called in criminal organizations, as a counselor. John Taylor, by the way, who did not do the job very well. He did murder Hiram in wrestling for my third great-grandfather's single-shot pistol. Ended up shooting him through the jaw. But John Taylor fled under the bed as he was shot by Joseph Smith with the remaining 3 balls that Joseph had in his pistol. And but he was still given prophet, seer, and revelator status in Brigham's Quorum of the 12. And because of his faithfulness in the Quorum of the 12 that Brigham Young created, which again I already pointed out to you, Brigham Young not appointed by God, so anything Brigham Young does is not approved by God, and making the Quorum of the 12 was not approved by God. Nevertheless, John Taylor being loyal during the whole God is Adam thing, whereas not Orson Hyde was the one of them who would have succeeded Brigham Young according to Brigham Young's changes, but Brigham Young changed the changes to keep Orson Hyde out of succession knocking him back down in succession, which put John Taylor in the position to be the successor. And so because of John Taylor's loyalty, he got to be the successor of Brigham Young. But again, confusion in the church when you don't follow the process. And so then we get to Jesus, which again, it's the dead prophet from the standard works. So we can't trust that anymore, can we, Mormons? Nevertheless, he says, don't serve two masters. You're either going to love the one or hate the other. Love the one and hate the other. And how? It's because of what Oakes says. Mormons are pitting prophets against each other. And it shouldn't happen, but it does because of the confusion that Brigham Young caused. Thus, no man can serve two masters. This is why Joseph Smith said, I will be the one in charge. Follow me. Don't listen to other people. We don't want to fracture the church. Which is what Brigham Young did. He set in motion the internal divisiveness that would one day explode or implode the church. And that's why you can't have two masters. And in the family unit, it gets tough, but there's only two options, unless you're in a polygamous family, which again Brigham Young started, blamed Joseph Smith for. And who is the master in the home? The woman always says, well, it's me, obviously. But again, the children get confused with the contradictions. And the smart children are going to be the ones playing the one parent against the other. The living against the dead prophets. One parent against the other. And this causes chaos. This causes confusion. This causes contradictions. Daddy said we could do it. Oh, he did he? Well, I'm your mother. You're going to listen to me. Family strife, family division, family problems. So, Mormons, on this day, as you get up at the pulpit and you declare as your testimony of the physical witness that President Nelson is a true prophet of God, remember that that's not the doctrine Oakes declared. So, unbelievable, but such is the case in the Mormon Church, and that's why it's about to collapse. The 100 billion scam is part of that. I was going to show you the weird stuff that was going on during the transition of Monson's death. But it was Nelson who was in charge of all those changes that occurred and the financial scams that they were attempting. Alrighty, that's the video for today. Don't bear false witness, Mormons. Refuse to bear your testimony, because you don't have one. You only have faith, and that faith is a fraud, because you haven't produced it to find out.